When you were a kid, right, did you ever do something that's so crazy that you kind of end up regretting it? That happened to me, and let me tell you what happened. But first, make sure you like and subscribe to this video, and let's get started. All right, so before you ask me why I'm in the bathroom because I was just filming another video that will be posted next week. We'll post it a week from now because I'm starting a new journey, and you will get to know what that is next week because it's going to take me about a week to complete it. So if you want to know what that is, make sure you like and subscribe, and you'll get to see what that is. But anyway, right, that's kind of why I'm in the bathroom, because that video took place in the bathroom. It needed to be taking place in the bathroom. But since I'm already in the bathroom, I got all my equipment set up, let me just tell you a real quick story time, right? So when I was a kid, I was about 5 years old, right? I used to live in islands, and I lived in a very rural country. I mean, think of living in a country and how rural it is. Now multiply that by like 10. That was how country it was, right? And that's where I lived, in a very, very, very small community. Everybody knew everybody. Basically, there was like one elementary school, there was one kindergarten / preschool, and everybody knows everybody, right? So at this time, I was 5 and I was in kindergarten, but at this time, they didn't call it kindergarten, they call it like basic school. So that's what the locals call it. It was just, you go to basic school when you're under 6 years old. So I was 5, right? So I lived in a household where you can't miss school. You can't miss school. You can't be absent from school. My household just did not play that. You have to go to school. Unless you're seriously sick. And technically, me and the kids in my household, we didn't really get sick. So we went to school every day. And being sick, I'm talking about if you have a cold, you go to school. If you have a runny nose, you go to school. That's not you being sick. You just have a cold. It's just a regular old cold. You'll be fine. Go to school. That's the kind of household that I grew up in, right? Okay. So one day, the school that I was going to, so the kindergarten school was separate from the elementary school, but they were right down the street from each other. And I think that particular day, I can't remember if the school kids, they were going on a trip. I think they were probably going on a field trip. And one of the teachers was going to be out. There was only 2 teachers in that classroom anyway, in that school. It was that small, yes. It was only 2 teachers, and the 2 teachers covered preschool, so pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and kindergarten. So from your age 3 up to 5, you went to school here. Or if you're age 2, if you can walk, talk, and you're potty trained, then you can go to school at 2. So you will have some 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds in that school, but I was 5. Anyway, neither here or there. There was going to be a field trip, right? The teacher told us the day before, hey, tomorrow's going to be a field trip, and you don't have to go if you don't want to, but just know if you come to school, not all the teachers will be here, only one teacher will be here. So you can stay home if you're not going to go on the trip, or if you're not going to come to school, you can stay home. So I am all excited, like, I'm not going to school tomorrow. I'm not going to school tomorrow. So I went home, and at the time I lived with my aunt, my grandparents, and my cousins, right? And I went home, and I told my aunt, I said, hey, tomorrow I don't have to go to school. The teacher said we don't have to come to school because if we're not going on that trip. So I'm going to stay home. And my aunt was like, I don't think you should stay home. You should go to school, right? And I was like, no, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I want to stay home. I want to stay home. And eventually she gave in and she said, okay, you can stay home for tomorrow since the teacher's not going to be there. So tomorrow comes, right? And my aunt, as she's leaving to go to work, I'm on the front porch as she's leaving to, say goodbye to her and stuff. And also my aunt works down the street from my school. So she literally has to pass both schools, including my school, to get to her job, 5 minutes down the road from my school. And as she's walking out the house, she steps off the porch and she turns around, she turns to me and she said, you know what? I think you should go to school today. I don't think you should stay home. And again, I went to, 5-year-old, no, I want to stay home. I want to stay home. And she's like, okay. So I was the only kid home. The other kids were in different schools, so they went to school, and I was home with my grandmother and my grandfather. And that's where the problem was, right? So on our front porch, we have like the front porch, like the railing, the wall that goes around the porch. Normally, we'll sit on that wall or on that railing, and the railing was made from concrete. We'll sit on there, we'll hang out. That's just what we did as kids, right? And on that railing, there was like 2 poles that goes from the railing that goes up to the ceiling. Kind of, I'm guessing for structural reasons, but also those 2 railings, those 2 poles were directly in front of the living room window. So I could always, sometimes I climb up on that wall, and I stand there and I hold on to the pole and do all of this and spin around. As kids, you play and do all that. And I was watching my reflection in the window. And at the same time, the radio in the living room was playing. The radio is always on in our household. The doors are always open all day long, and the radio plays all day long to the end of the day. So I was out there by myself. My grandparents were in the house, and I was just hanging on the porch by myself, just hanging on. And before you ask why is she outside by herself, our neighborhood, or that we lived in, our community is ridiculously safe. All right, it was super safe. So my grandparents wasn't worried about whether anything was going to happen to me. Was I going to get kidnapped? Anybody would come and hurt me? No, because we knew everyone in the community, and no one does anything to you, right? So anyway, I'm out there, just hanging out by myself. Next thing I know, boom, I completely slipped when I was holding on to the pole and doing all of this on the pole and doing all of that. I'm guessing I probably had just finished eating. My hands was probably greasy, but for some reason, I lost my grip off that pole, and boom, I hit the floor. Hit the ground, concrete ground, hit the ground. But that wasn't the worst part. Oh my gosh. I completely slipped my knee, split the side of my knee completely open. There happened to be some metal zinc of some sort right by the front porch. And I, as luck would have it, fell right on it. Slipped my left knee right here. There's a big scar right there. Just slit it open. All I could see was blood and my white flesh. It was horrible. And I started screaming, and I am screaming. And my grandmother came outside, my grandfather came outside, and they are like horrified, like what happened to this child? Because they didn't see what happened. All they know is that I am crying bloody murder, right? And at that time, my grandmother always had a scarf on her head. Always. When she's home, she always have a scarf on her head. So she took that scarf off her head and wrapped it around my knee to try to stop the bleeding. Yes, she wrapped it around my knee. And as luck would also have it, at that time, there was other people walking past the house in the neighborhood, and everybody was like in a frenzy trying to figure out how are we going to help this little girl. She's bleeding so much. She has this big scar. And we didn't have cars. We didn't have phones. We didn't have cell phones, no house phones, no cars, nothing. All right? So it's like, okay, she needs to go to the hospital. This cut is too big to not take to the hospital. But I'm telling you, the cut was huge. That basically, the skin split open. So it was like spreading wide apart, even though I don't even know how to explain it. But all I know is my knee was busted open. Thankfully, it didn't go down to the bone. It was just flesh. But it was bleeding a lot. Right? And somebody was walking past, and somebody said, like, go call her uncle. So my uncle, who lived about approximately 2 miles away, maybe even more than that, and somebody was walking past in the house, in the street by our house, and somebody said, there's a lot of people. At this time, it was a lot of people around that heard the screaming. They're gathering. The neighbors started gathering to see what happened, and somebody said, hey, go call her uncle. Go call her uncle, my Uncle Manley. Go get Manley. That's what they're saying. They say in their accents too. Go get Manley. Go call Manley. And mind you, like I said, there's no cars, there's no nothing, there's no phones, there's no cell phones, there's none of that. So somebody, I don't know who it was to this day, I don't know who the person is, that took off and ran to go get my uncle. My uncle at the time, he drives passengers in he has a passenger van. That's his job. He drives people from the rural area into town where they do their shopping, like their grocery shoppings and stuff, and he drives them back home. And he has a regular route that he drives. All right, and people stop him along the way. They get in his van, and he drives them to the town, and he waits till passengers fill his van up. It's not necessarily the same passengers that he took that's coming back. It's just that throughout the day, this is what he does all day back and forth. So we don't know if this man is home, if my uncle is home. We don't know if he's on the road driving passengers. But again, as luck would have it, luckily, he was home. So about maybe, I want to say probably about an hour, because it took a while, or not even an hour, maybe 45 minutes or so. It took a while for the person who had to go to his house 2 miles away by foot to his house to go find him to see if he's home. And luckily he was home, and he came back, and he came and grabbed me, and he took me to the emergency room. And I think he took me by himself. I don't know if anyone else came with him. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. I was 5. Okay, I don't remember. But I know he drove me to the hospital. My grandmother didn't come because at that time my grandmother was older and she didn't do long driving. And the hospital was probably maybe about 45 minutes to an hour drive away. So the hospital was pretty far. And he took me to the emergency room. And I don't know the whole process of what happens once he gets to check me. I don't know. What I do remember though is being on the table in a room and a whole medical staff holding me down. That's what I remember, because I was screaming so much and I needed stitches. So I had to get stitches to stitch the wound up, right? And let me tell you this, I don't know why they did not put me under anesthesia. They did not numb the area. They stitched me up while I was wide awake and screaming. So imagine being 5 years old and 100 or whatever, well, not 100, maybe 5 or 6 people holding you down because you're screaming, and you need to hold still so they could put these needles through your wound and stitch the skins back together. And that's what they did. Now imagine, I think at the end they told my uncle I had 9 stitches. So I want you to picture this, 9 stitches, right? And they're stitching 2 things together. So if it's stitching 2 things together, the needle has to go through that side of the skin, go through the other side of the skin. That's 1 stitch. So basically that needle pierced my skin 18 times. It was 9 stitches, that needle pierced my skin 18 times. So imagine getting stuck with a needle 18 times consecutively as a 5-year-old. Right, as a 5-year-old, that's what they did. All right, and just imagine me on that table in the hospital room, screaming my head off, and traumatizing. Okay, traumatizing. But I eventually got through it. They stitched me up, and I think before I left, they gave me a shot. I don't know what the shot was for, but they did give me an injection before I leave. And then my uncle took me home. By the time we got home, it was dark. And I remembered what we had for dinner. I remember it was rice and, what was it? I think it was white rice and mackerel for dinner. Don't ask me why I remember that, but I do. But yeah, so I didn't go to school and I end up regretting not going to school. I should have listened to my aunt when she was heading out the door, and she said, you know what, Channy, I think you should go to school today. Nothing good happens when you stay home. Just go to school. And 5-year-old me was like, no, I want to stay home. That was the result of me not listening to the adult who was in charge of me. I ended up falling, getting a huge gash on my knee, and I am scarred for life. I'm going to take a picture and insert it here so you can see what the scar actually looks like. I still have it. It hasn't gone anywhere. And if you look closely, you can see the little dots from where the needles went through for the stitches. But I counted it, and I counted more than 9. But that's just me. But the doctor said it was 9. My uncle said it was 9. My uncle told my family it was 9. So we're going to say 9, even though I count. Look at it and can count more than 9 little holes the needle went through. But that's my story. Let me know what you think. Do you have anything that you remember when you were a child where you didn't listen to your parents and something bad happened? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Anyway, if you stayed this long in the video, make sure you like and subscribe. And again, make sure you stay tuned for my new journey that I have coming up, and that video will be available next week. But I may do another video in between that, but I'm not sure yet. But make sure you like and subscribe. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Next video. Bye.